soon as you get to Earth, deliver any information found in the spacecraft to the commander's office.
Previously on HMIS Data Standards.
Have you checked the HUD Data Standards tutorial?
Check it out. It's a multi-segmented tutorial that details certain data elements.
Check your assessments today. Here's an easy exercise to check the pulse of your data. Name. 3.2 Social Security number. 3.3 Date of birth. 3.4 Race. 3.5 Ethnicity. 3.6 Gender. 3.7 Veteran status. 3.8 Disabling condition.
Remember those simple rules of office etiquette, and you'll get along in the business world.
3.917 Living situation.
Elements 3.9 Residence prior to project entry and 3.17 Length of time on the streets, in an emergency shelter, or in a safe haven were combined into a super new element. But wait, there's more. Since the data standards are constantly evolving to facilitate data entry, 3.917 has a component A for persons entering into a street outreach, emergency shelter, or safe haven, and B for all other HMIS product types. This separation clarifies the definition of chronic homelessness as identified in the final rule in the Federal Register published December 5, 2015, and is able to be fully reported through an HMIS.
3.917A, Living Situation, for persons entering HMIS project type, street outreach, emergency shelter, and safe haven. HUD strongly encourages HMIS users to just ask the client for the information and record their answer. Attempting to tie each individual's response with definitions or documentation of the requirement is not the intent of this question. 1. Select the type of living arrangement the head of household and each adult household member had just prior to entry into the street outreach, emergency shelter, or safe haven project. The living situations have been divided into 3 different categories: literally homeless, institutional, and transitional and permanent housing. When one of the 3 situations is identified as the prior living situation of the client, then only one of the living situation response elements under that category may be selected. Two, record the length of time the client was residing in their previous place of stay. 3, record the approximate date this homeless situation began. 4, regardless of where the client stayed last night, enter the number of times the client has been homeless on the streets, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years, including today. 5, record the total number of months homeless the client has been on the streets, in emergency shelter, or safe haven in the past 3 years.
If you look closely, interim housing is a new response. It is not a type of housing, but rather a housing situation where a person has applied and was accepted for permanent housing, but can't move in immediately. This is not a substitute for a waiting list, but a temporary solution for reporting purposes.
Bear with us, this is a new element. That's why we are taking so much time to explain it. Hold on, this is not over yet.
3.917B, Living Situation, for persons entering all other HMIS project types. This element is very similar to its sibling A, but is only unlocked when accessing transitional housing, any form of permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, services only, day shelter, homelessness prevention, coordinated entry, and any other type of project that isn't street outreach, emergency shelter, or safe haven.
Are we there yet? Yes. Really? No!
If the client's prior living situation was an institutional situation, here's something to consider. If the client was in the institution longer than 90 days, indicate the amount of time and no other questions are required. If it was less than 90 days, determine if their living situation immediately before entering the institution was on the streets, in an emergency shelter, or at a safe haven. If they did not enter the institution as homeless, no other questions are required. But if they were, chronic homelessness must be determined by answering the questions. If the client's prior living situation was a transitional or permanent housing, or they refuse to answer, don't know, or the information is missing, then
This element is vast, and you should consider reading more about it. Remember where to find it? We'll stop here for now. Are you ready to move on? Hello? Okay.
3.10 Project Entry Date.
This is a key element for reporting purposes. Residential COC projects need it to measure the length of stay, and services-only projects need it to determine amount of time of participation.
3.11 Project Exit Date.
The exit date is needed to measure the time of client's participation in the project. The COC uses this to measure length of stay. Every circle must be closed. For residential projects, this date is the date a client stops residing in the project. Don't forget to also check them out if you have a bed inventory in HMIS.
3.12 Destination.
This element tells us where the client will stay after exiting a project for outcome measures. There are 30 different answers, including client doesn't know and refused. This used to be collected just for adults in the household, but sometimes the family doesn't leave at the same time, so now it's for everybody.
3.13 Client ID.
This one is on us. When you click Save after saving demographics on a new client, Client Tracks assigns a number. This is a number we will use in emails to protect client's identity and personal information.
3.14 Family ID.
This element ties the family together in a single enrollment. It's also generated automatically.
3.15 Relationship to head of household.
A household can be a single individual or a group of persons living together who apply jointly to receive services or housing assistance. The head of household is not intended to mean the leader of the house. It shouldn't create debates or discussion. See it as the primary client or the eligible individual in a RHY or SSVF project, for example.
3.16 Client Location.
This option is assigned automatically. It's the COC code for the good old balance of state. Again, it's automatic unless you have a client enrolled since before September 2014. I'd go check that out.
And that's the way you do it.
That's all, folks.